From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. This is a weekly podcast about me pissing Sean off for unnecessary reasons. We are, of course, proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You'll find all of our old episodes, all of our new episodes, and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. With me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. His name is Sean, and aside from being irritated by everything involving me, how are you doing today, Sean?
This is like battered spouse syndrome or something. If you dial 911, he dials 187. John, I'm great. Thanks for asking.
Cool. We're off to a great start this week.
Yeah,
Sean, what have you been watching this week?
I get a chance to watch a couple things. They're all Lorne Michaels surrounding. The first thing I'm going to talk about is this movie from 1986 called High Stakes. And John, it is a barn burner. David Foley in like a really early role, like pre-Kids in the Hall, Dave Foley. I don't know. I keep wanting to call him David Foley, but Dave Foley. And he plays this aspiring reporter who gets a big series through these unrealistic mishaps. And then it all kind of unravels down to him discovering this Nazi treasure. It's spoofy. It's kind of like a noir, black and white noir kind of detective film, which is just really weird. I'll say I don't know if I recommend it. Actually, I don't think I would. It moves really slowly. It's like one of those movies that's like an hour and a half and feels like it's an hour and 50 to 2 hours. It's just, I think it's cool to see Dave Foley in this really early role. He looks like super young, but I could think of a few other better ways to spend an hour and 20 minutes than to watch this movie. And I think I had read, doing research on the movie itself just to figure out information about it, that Keanu Reeves was actually up for this part that Dave Foley gets. And I don't think I could see Keanu Reeves playing this character. He's just this kind of, I don't know, this reporter. Yeah, exactly. Whoa, this reporter that just gets in these situations. He's like a cub reporter. He's just trying to get this story. It's really weird. I don't think it's something he's super proud of either, which I could understand, but only look for it if you're a completionist. Of course, they'll be linked in our show notes. If you're a Dave Foley completionist, you can go watch it. The next thing I'll talk about is I got two documentaries. So the first one I'll talk about is called Marty, Life is Short, and it's on Netflix. It is a Martin Short documentary. And this one follows his career, basically like his childhood all the way through, current day, right? They talk to a bunch of talking heads, of course, all the people that you would expect to see. Eugene Levy, Steve Martin, I think Chevy Chase is in it for a little bit. They get all the regular people that you expect. I don't know if
all three amigos.
Yeah, all three amigos. They talk about the three amigos quite a bit. It's a landmark, groundbreaking movie. They talk to obviously all the SCTV people, like I said, his famous friends. The thing that's interesting about Martin Short is, you hear about comedians and they always, not that they always, but more often than not, they have these like really kind of screwed up things in their childhood. Maybe they're, I tried to make my dad laugh because that was the only time he wouldn't beat me. And that's why I became a comedian. Like Martin Short's whole thing is nothing like that. He has this like, by all accounts, has this like super happy, friendly childhood, and all his he has, I think, two brothers and a sister. And they're all like really funny. One of his older brothers is like an Emmy Award winning writer, and I think he wrote on SNL for a short amount of time. So it's just a really kind of heartwarming documentary about seemingly one of the nicest people in show business. And they do focus a lot on his family, his actual family, not like his brothers and sisters, but his personal family and his marriage. He talks a lot about his wife who passed away. And yeah, it's just a really nice kind of heartfelt documentary that, again, you just, it's hard not to like Martin Short. He just seems like a genuinely nice guy. And okay, well, maybe. And
I don't like him as an actor. I have nothing against him as a human being.
Sure.
So as an actor, he tends to annoy me.
There were clips that they had from his SNL days and from his SCTV days. And I found myself like, I don't know if you ever saw him and Harry Shearer doing, like, one of Martin Short's first things in SNL is they're playing these synchronized swimming partners. And I don't know if I don't remember. I haven't seen it in a long time, but that's like, I laughed the shit out of that one. I remember that one really well and really enjoyed that skit. But then the next thing I'll talk about, the last thing I'll talk about as far as what I've been watching is the Lorne documentary, which just came out 2026 this year. And this one, again, is kind of like the Martin Short documentary, but it's covering the entire career of Lorne Michaels. It's covers from, like, you know, him being a kid. There's parts about him on Canadian television, him starting SNL, going up until 1980 when he left, and he left for 5 years till 85.
Is this an actual documentary, or is this one of those, like, there's an actor playing Lorne Michael and we're being told it, like, narratively?
No, it's all interviews with Lorne, again, cast members of SNL.
That makes me want to watch it more, because
for whatever reason, the poster for it.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the poster for it made, and I did, in all fairness, didn't look that much into it. It's been on my, like, oh, I'm interested in this, but I just haven't done the legwork. So thank you for doing that for me.
My pleasure.
The poster made it look like it was some kind of, I don't know, dramatization, or kind of like what these rockumentaries have become, except for Lorne Michael instead of a musician. It's kind of the impression I got from it, but again, I haven't watched it yet or looked into it, so I'm glad to hear it's actually a doc. If
you're a fan of SNL, I would say you're gonna really like it. It's all behind the scenes footage. They dug up all these interviews of him talking about SNL and different iterations, talking about his career in the 70s, his show that he had on CBC, like all that stuff. It's a really good kind of recap of his career. And they actually, you know, he's a very, obviously, if you followed him at all, he's like a very private person. There's not a lot known about him. He doesn't share a lot about his life. And this was kind of like an all access kind of thing. Like they didn't show his wife. They didn't show his kids. They talk about him. I think when they show a picture of them, their faces are all blurred out. So it's like, they're all still very private, but you get pretty much whatever kind of access you want to Lorne in this, you get it. And the way the movie is portrayed is like it goes through the week of a show of SNL. So they start on Monday and they talk about bringing the guest in, and they kind of go through some of the script, and they have, like, you know, Fred Armisen and John Mulaney and Bill Hader and, you know, all the people that you'd want to see, really. I don't think there's much. There's a little bit of Sandler in there. There's a little bit of who else is in there that's like just a touch, like Conan's in there a little bit. So they talk to all the people. They don't
have any
talk to.
How about like Aykroyd or Murray or any of the like old cast that's not dead yet?
I feel like
Eddie
the
Murphy.
only one that they really show is they show just a couple seconds with Chevy Chase. I don't think they have Aykroyd in there at all, other than like old footage. And
I'd want to hear from Hader and some of the guys you mentioned too, but I almost feel like, again, you're going to get such a difference just by the fact that show's been on 50 years now. You're going to get a different opinion of Lorne Michaels from, say, Dan Aykroyd than you would from Bill Hader, just from the 50-ish years, you know, between them.
And that's the thing. I think the criticism that I've read online about it is like, this is if you're already an SNL fan, you probably know a lot, like, especially if you're like a super fan, you probably know all this stuff. So you're not going to see anything that's like blows your mind. But I feel like if you're somebody like me, who's got a pretty surface level idea of like what goes on, you know, I've read articles and I know about all this, some of the setup or the structure of how the show's set up and how they like do everything last minute pretty much, then yeah, you'll get probably a little bit of information but if you're like a super fan, this is not going to be anything that's new for you. So, but a lot of the criticism I saw was like, yeah, this is real surface level. Like it doesn't get really to any of the controversies other than like the cast in 95 that at the end of the season, a lot of people were pretty much fired from the show. That's one thing they get into for just a few minutes. They talk about what Don Ohlmeyer, whoever the guy that was the head of the network that like didn't want Norm doing the OJ jokes. He was like, OJ Simpson was one of his good friends and he didn't appreciate Norm doing these jokes. But then Norm doing that was like Lorne's way, the only way Lorne could really give Don Ohlmeyer the finger. basically is how it's portrayed, so it was a good documentary. It was filmed. I think a lot of the stuff that they talk about, like when they talk in season, is from 2024. So season 49, there's nothing super new. It doesn't cover really anything from the last 2 seasons, but it's a good doc narrated by Chris Parnell, and he does the Chris Parnell thing, so it comes across as like broadcasty. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Like I said, there were some things that I knew and a lot of things that I didn't. Like, I don't know, didn't know that, Lorne Michaels had a vacation home in Maine or anything like that. So it was kind of cool to see like what he had done in the things like in
Didn't
the times
know that he has a vacation home, and
from 80 to 85 when he was off, and him kind of addressing that, because I had never heard like why he actually left.
I didn't know he had a vacation home anywhere, and I kind of don't care.
Well, if you would watch this documentary, I just told you, you would know all this stuff. But yeah,
that's true.
Those are the 3 things I watched. So. John, what have you been watching?
I'm kind of all over the place this week. So as recently as today, I was admittedly not watching it as close as I probably should have, but I was watching Lone Wolf Wade, which I haven't watched in a while. So you have some good old, Chuck Norris versus Bill, aka David Carradine. Bill wearing really oddly out of place sweaters to fight Chuck Norris in his kicking jeans and like hepatitis bare chested chest. Basically, the story of the movie is just real quick that, Walker, he's not Walker. I guess this is supposedly a prequel to Walker, Texas Ranger, but he's a Texas Ranger. David Carradine's a smuggler. I think he's like a weapon smuggler or something. And Chuck Norris don't have no time for that shit. So David Carradine kills his dog, and then it just escalates from there, and they, wrestle back and forth. But yeah,
does Chuck
seeing
Norris
them,
tell me he has AIDS?
I don't believe he does. That would have been an
okay.
interesting twist, but if he did, I missed that line. So like I said, I wasn't watching it that close, but there's in true like this era, like early 80s Chuck Norris fashion. I don't remember this one's before, or I think this is right before he went to Canon Films, but it feels like that. It's got a lot of like unnecessary explosions, a lot of ridiculous deaths, stunts that look like, oh, that guy probably should be dead. Those types of things with it. So, all that fun stuff. But yeah, that was kind of putzing around and watching that earlier today. So that was a good time. On the documentary side, I'll kind of lump these together because I've been going back through some of the 30 for 30 seasons, because apparently I thought I had seen all these documentaries. Apparently not. I was just kind of jonesing for like a sports doc, and I couldn't find. I actually went as far to ask AI, like, hey, what are some good either NFL or MLB docs that have come out in the last, I used 3 years as a window. And it just rattled off like 10 things. I'm like, hey, I've seen all those. I was like, go deeper. Rattles off 15 more things, like seen all those. Shit. I'm like, all right, try going back 10 years. And then it just got really stupid. It was at like, but one of the things it said was the 30 for 30 series. I was like, you know what? I bet there's at least 1 or 2 that I haven't actually watched, and they're sure enough. So the 2 that I went through this week was, the first one was The Band That Wouldn't Die, which is about the Baltimore Colts band that played for the Baltimore Colts as a band, not as football players, before the team moved. So it starts with them talking about Irsay Sr., what's his name, Jim too?
Yeah.
Whichever one owned him before Jim Irsay did, and how he basically moved the team in the middle of the night. Like apparently, like the way they describe it sounds like a freight train just rolling through Baltimore, just stealing their football team, which is kind of funny. The only thing they couldn't get out of there in time was the Baltimore Colts marching band uniforms, because they were at the cleaners at the time. So someone took them and hid them in this like family mausoleum until the rest of the stuff was gone, so they could take them out and not have them on the bus to Indianapolis. And then the rest of the movie is basically how it's really more about it's kind of intertwined with the city losing the team, and then the city of Baltimore essentially politicking the NFL to get a team back for however many fucking years it took. I want to say like 50 years, but I don't think it was quite that long. And at the heart of it is always this marching band. And they even started doing things like they started playing halftime at the Browns games and doing all these other shits around Baltimore and whatnot. And eventually, Baltimore gets a team back. They're the Ravens now, if you weren't aware. And the marching band does a victory lap. It's kind of funny because you have all these old marching band guys in there. There's several of them that are still, I'm sure even less of them are alive now than 10 years ago when this came out. But several of them are in the documentary and talking about, blah, 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 marching band, toot, toot, all this shit. But they get kind of high and mighty with themselves. They're like, you know what? We did this. We're responsible. I'm like, I'm got a feeling Art Modell and his billions of dollars had a little bit of something to do with it too. But whatever. It's interesting enough for what it is, but it's really not that in depth of a documentary. What I just told you is the heart of the documentary, and I didn't even say it all that eloquently. So take that for whatever it's worth. And then I followed that up with the Without Bias documentary, again, still 30 for 30, and it's about the death of Len Bias. If you don't know who Len Bias is, Len Bias was the first round draft pick of the Boston Celtics in some year. I don't remember what year off the top of my head. It's right after they came off a championship. What's his face? The bald guy with the cigar essentially manipulated the draft. Again, I don't know his name. I know his face when I see him. He was like the face of the Celtics for fucking ever.
Brett Auerbach?
He essentially, him. He essentially manipulated the draft to get them up to the second pick right after winning the championship. They drafted Len Bias. A lot of people thought he might be better than Michael Jordan. His same draft class as Michael Jordan. So I guess this would have been 84, maybe 83, 84, something like that. Whatever. He went ahead of Michael Jordan by like one pick, and everyone thought that he was going to be this next thing in the NBA. And within 24 hours of being drafted, he had a heart attack as a result of using cocaine and it, fucking up his heart, as cocaine tends to do. That's actually a really short part of the documentary. What's kind of interesting about it is everything that came after it, because they kind of tie it to, the war on drugs in America, some of the prison sentences that came to people who got caught with really heady amounts of drugs after, a lot of the paranoia around drug use, and whatnot, and stigma that gets put out. They really make it sound like the death of Len Bias is what instigated all this, and I can see how that might have had some kind of influence on it. But to say that it instigated that much, I might not be a basketball fan, but I do consider myself a sports fan. I didn't really know the name Len Bias until I started watching that other Celtics documentary that was on HBO. I think that was last year. I was watching that.
Yeah.
I had no idea who the dude was. And with all due respect to Len Bias and his family, you died before you ever did anything other than getting drafted. So if you're not I'd go as far as to say, if you're not a Celtics fan and you're not you weren't an adult, when that draft happened, it doesn't seem like something that would be pertinent to the majority of us, or something that it feels more like local trivia as opposed to national trivia.
Feels like an answer to a trivia question at a sports night or something. Yeah. I mean,
right. So
yeah. Not to trivialize, but
no, yeah, not at all. But it is interesting though. You get a lot of basically tracking down everything that he did between when he left the actual draft ceremony up until about the time that he died. You get to hear from some of the people who were with him during this party when it happened. And, these documentaries are only about an hour long. These originally aired on ESPN. So at least these two, they don't take a ton of time to they go deeper than you would expect for this type of subject, or at least for the time when these came out. But they definitely don't bog you down with overkill on details. So it's good. It's interesting. If you like the Celtics, especially, it's probably worth watching for that, or maybe not. Maybe it will bum you out. I don't know. But, if you can find those, check that out. Last thing I'll talk about, and this is probably the best worst thing I'll talk about today. It's called Day of the Reaper. Came out in 1984. And this is very much so in the vein of some type of bullshit that Sean would make me watch, because it's, Casio soundtrack using the same 4 notes on repeat until you go crazy. Basically, this is a shot on Shitio movie. Again, came out in 1984 about 5 women who are being stalked by a hooded cannibal killer in Florida. They're only being stalked. He's only wearing a hood because he was wearing a hood when he got arrested. And then when they basically didn't lock the door that he was in. So he just opens the door and gets out and murders some more people and walks away and, whatever. This is one of those movies that is legitimately like a piece of shit, but also legitimately a very entertaining and comically bad piece of shit. It's got really great moments where because he's a cannibal, they have to make cannibal sound effects. So he's basically like, you've already heard this, but Sean,
Yes,
but
I like it.
For everyone else, when he's cannibalizing, he's basically just those are eating sounds when you're a cannibal, apparently. I think my favorite part of the whole thing is in this movie is eventually some other cops show up and get involved, and they're talking about like they're interviewing one of the girls that's a victim. She's like, "Oh, we saw him eating people." Or he goes, "Oh, that explains a lot. There's been 100 people or so missing in this swamp, and we can't find this guy or anything. It must be because he's eating these people." And then 2 minutes later, it's like, "There's been at least 40 people missing since Friday." I'm like, how much is this guy eating? So, really
hungry.
good. Very good use of logic in this. And the last thing I'll mention with that's worth noting is it's always good when a hand that's been amputated from a body manages to move itself out of the bathtub. That it's acting like it's floating in the bathtub, but then they move the camera and you can see there's no water in the bathtub. So the fact that it moves is just all kinds of like, what? So,
it's the Thing from the Addams Family. Just crawls its way out of there.
Yeah, more or less. So yeah, that's on Tubi, and that's a piece of shit. And if you want to have something that is very much so in the vein of what Sean likes, that's where you should start. Got anything else you want to touch on before we switch gears and talk about a new movie?
No, I think the only thing, the two 30 for 30s that you were talking about, I remember definitely saw them both, and I can tell you that the Without Bias is the stronger of the two. I've read people saying that the band, what is it called? The band
it's like the band that wouldn't die.
Yeah. I heard people say, like, really talk highly about that, but I kind of had the same opinion you did. I wasn't super, super crazy about it, but yeah.
I think the more interesting stuff is by far the bit about them moving the team and how that affected the city. The band that is really just a MacGuffin for them to tell the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at least I thought it was. And I'm sure someone in Baltimore, if there's anyone in Baltimore that listens to us, probably not. He's probably like, "Fuck you, fucking Jagoon. We love our band." So I don't know. So what do they say, Jagoon?
I was going to say it. I don't know if that's a Baltimore thing, but I'll give it to you.
Well, it is now. So you got anything else you want to touch on before we switch gears here?
No.
All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about a new movie. You might have heard of it if you follow us or if you have some common sense. It's called Hellmare. We're going to be right back.
So, you're a horror fan? Interesting. Welcome to the Horror Friendly Podcast, where Katie and Tel watch the scariest films ever made, with a very large glass of wine. Every Monday, 1 film, 2 women, 0 chill. They'll cover the scares, the bad CGI, the questionable decisions, the characters who definitely deserved it, all through the female eye. And at the end of every episode, they ask the most important question in horror history. Would we survive? Spoiler, sometimes they wouldn't. And honestly, same. The Horror Friendly Podcast, part of the You Run Podcast Network. Find them and all the other great shows at yourunpodcast.com. Bring the wine.
We need to talk about our Patreon.
Do we have to?
Yes. $5 a month makes you a hot dogger. You get early episodes, Discord access, and the ability to vote on stuff we'll probably ignore.
$10 makes you a butthorn, which honestly is worth it just to say you're a butthorn. You also get watch-alongs, episode requests, and monthly recs from 2 people with questionable taste.
And $15? Congratulations, you're a dirt biking dickhead. You get everything else plus Pod Monster Vision, trailer reactions, and we will say your name out loud once a month like you're being summoned.
So really you're paying us to hang out with us more.
Which says a lot about you, honestly.
Patreon.com/DeweyPodMonster.
Come be a dickhead. We mean that with love.
All right, welcome back, you Jagoons. we're going to be talking about the movie Hellmare. Hellmare just came out. I mean, this movie as we record today on this Monday, whatever day it is, we're literally 48 hours from when this movie premiered. So there's not a lot of third-party reviews to start with, but I was able to solicit one. So we're going to say thank you to Jordana from Pretty Killer Podcast. Please do go check out her show and all her stuff that she has going on. But she gave us a quick review of Hellmare for our third-party review. And she's saying this is a perfect combo of new horror that feels like something out of the 80s mixed with some gnarly effects. Indie horror is alive and it's where it's at. She gave it 3 happy faces out of 3 happy faces, I guess. These are not letterbox
scientific.
ratings, so that's all
These are not scientific.
No, they're not scientific. So, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you want to tell us what Hellmare is about?
Yeah, so for that, I go over to imdb.com. It's this internet movie database. You may have heard of it. And I type in the word Hellmare, and that's one word, Hellmare. And it brings up a movie from 2026. This is an hour and 20 minutes long. It is, as far as I can tell, unrated. And we go to this thing on the top. We're never quite sure if it's a storyline or the plot, but Hellmare told me that I need to read it because it's on the top. So it says the year.
Wait. Gwildor didn't tell you? Hellmare told you?
Hellmare invaded my dreams and told me.
Did Hellmare fucking murder Gwildor?
I hope not, because we need Gwildor to come back occasionally to let us know to read this thing on the top. But the thing on the top, back to that, says the year is 1997, and on a gloomy evening in Detroit, a group of friends are sucked into a horror movie when they gather at the house of a recently deceased occultist to screen a film entitled Hellmare. So if we scroll on down to the storyline, it pretty much tells us the same thing. It says the year's 1997, on a gloomy evening in Detroit, a group of friends are sucked into a horror movie when they gather at the house of a recently deceased occultist to screen a film entitled Hellmare.
And Sean, I know this one's a little bit different than what we usually do, but are there, as far as who made this movie, who's in this movie, who would you like to highlight in this particular feature?
Yeah, so this is directed by Victor Gabriel, who also directed Blood Gorge, which we'll leave in the show notes. I'll link to it in the show notes. You can check that out. Really, there's a lot of local people, so they're kind of people that have been in Victor Gabriel's other films. The one exception, and it almost feels, it's not really a spoiler, but it almost feels kind of very key to the plot, is Lloyd Kaufman, who plays Grandpa. You may know Lloyd Kaufman from several things, but he's the overall trauma guy. Yeah, so he's been in, stuff like trauma stuff. So probably like Class at Newcomb High. And
he wrote into the show once and complained about Delta Airlines.
Yeah, I don't know if he wrote into this show. Did he?
No, he did. Yeah. He wrote it to us on Twitter back when we were still on there and complained about Delta Airlines for like
sounds pertinent.
4 or 5 tweets. Yeah.
Sounds relevant. So you might know him from Toxic Avenger, Trauma's War, Return to Newcomb High, Shakespeare's Shitstorm. And this is probably the most, I can't remember the last person I said about this that I saw that had the most acting credits on IMDb. Lloyd Kaufman has over 480 acting credits on IMDb. So if you don't know the name, you probably know the face. And if you don't know the name or the face, then why are you listening to the show?
I was going to say, if you don't know the name or the face Lloyd Kaufman, please let us know in the comments. I'd be curious to know how you got here, because I'm not going to go as far to say Lloyd Kaufman is some superstar, but I feel like if you are listening to an episode about Hellmare, or for that matter, at least half of the other episodes that we've done, you're somewhat vaguely familiar with who and what Lloyd Kaufman is. So
correct.
So I do want to mention again, we just came from the premiere of this movie. This just came out in the past couple days. So there's not going to be a lot of information as to where to find this movie yet for streaming and whatnot. We'll do our best to leave information in the description on this video. But the best way to keep an eye on it, please give RFN Pictures a follow. That is the account of Victor, who is the director. Any showings that he's doing, he posts up there, and we share them as much as we can. So if you want to check this movie out, which you absolutely should, give them a follow on Instagram, on socials and stuff. That's going to be the best way, at least in the short term, to keep an eye on where this movie's popping up. As for a third-party review, or whatever I do, not that, we already did the third-party review. As for like a quick clip notes on it, I didn't really think of the occultist part for Grandpa on it. Basically, I just see this movie as a little indie picture where people go in, watch a horror movie, and then they become part of said horror movie. Things happen, shenanigans ensue. Mm-hmm. And then once they're in the movie, it's all about trying to survive. That'd be my cliff notes on it.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we're going to do our usual thing. We're going to go through positives, if we have any negatives or anything like that, and then we'll get to, good old hot dogs. And I'm going to start us off. So I'll say on a positive side, keeping in mind, this is like no budget indie horror movie. So that all has to be said up front with this. You can't go into this movie expecting something like a John Carpenter movie. It's just, that's not what you're signing up for with this at this point.
You can't go into it expecting The Reaper or whatever. Whatever that movie you talked about.
Day of the Reaper?
Day of the Reaper. This is no Day. Well, actually, this is probably better than Day of the Reaper.
This is dramatically better than Day of the Reaper. There's at least 3 songs used in this movie, which is a huge.
That's a big upgrade.
There's more than
and
there's more than 3 songs. Well, that's a downside. But I actually think like I watch a lot of indie movies and a lot of like young filmmaker stuff, like just for I enjoy that kind of stuff. And this movie does a really good job of giving you a narrative, keeping the story held together, tying loose ends together. Like, I don't feel like this movie leaves a lot of cliffhangers I don't want to say it doesn't have plot holes, because even if this was like, a big budget movie, this kind of movie inherently has plot holes in it because it's fun.
It can only be so long.
It's that kind of thing. Right. But I think for like, this does a good job of giving you a story, keeping you in line with the story, telling you where it's going, and it doesn't waste your time. It doesn't like go on these confusing, boring, like there's no 10 minutes of people walking around because we got to fill 10 minutes and just like bitching about nothing. Like, every scene that's in this has a purpose, progresses the story, and is constructed in a way that actually allows the viewer to follow that story. And I mean, as silly as it sounds for a indie film like this, a lot of movies I watch that I also enjoy don't do that much. So this is doing that really well. I like the color palette on this movie. So this movie takes again, it starts in 1997 is when it begins. I mean, I didn't know that it has to be specifically 97. Doesn't really matter. It starts in the mid 90s. So you got a video store. You have this more cooler color palette that starts with on it that you see to like bring you into the modern quote unquote time. And then once you get into the videotape, it almost changes to like a whole different setting. It has this like, I don't know, Farm from Hell vibe that it goes to. And it still looks really good. It's lit really well. The camera moves good. The audio sounds good on it. So all the technical stuff that's in this movie, especially watching it progress from Cruel and from Blood Gorge, I think they did a really good job and nailed the look and feel of this movie to get the story going.
I'd agree. I think the story, the idea of the story feels really original. I like that there's the different characters, some, as we kind of talked, the characters, most of the characters get sucked in from quote unquote the real world, the world inside this movie that these characters live in. I like that idea. I like that they're also, so when they put this Hellmare tape, this VHS tape is supposed to be this like one of those movies that, like an urban legend. Nobody has actually seen this thing.
Kirsty or whatever.
Yeah, nobody knows who made it. Nobody can recognize the actors. When they put the tape in, they play through the trailers, and characters from the trailers that are on the VHS tape get sucked into, as well as these real characters get sucked into the tape, into the movie, and then they have to live inside this world or try to get out of this world. And I thought that was a really cool idea. It's not something, I mean, I'm sure that like it's not 100% original. I'm sure someone somewhere has made a movie like this, but the way that this movie portrays it feels like a really new idea. It's not kind of just, the supernatural killer that with a mask on that can't ever be killed, and he just happens to find, they live in the neighborhood, and every 20 years this guy comes, he gets hit by a bolt of lightning and he comes to life and he kills people. It's not one of those things. It's not like a straight up formulaic slasher. So I do like that they do that. They are all put face to face against this killer, but it feels like a really novel concept when you put all those ideas together and have them have to work together, like characters from the other movies. Some of the other characters from the other movies are adversarial characters because there's like, it's a horror tape I would assume the tape's supposed to be from the 80s. You get those kind of,
it's either the 80s or the 70s. It feels more like the 80s.
Yeah, it feels more like an 80s thing with like, there's like a vampire movie. There's like the
Witchcraft Cop feels very, and by the way, Victor, if and when you hear this, putting it out there now, make a Witchcraft Cop movie. I want Witchcraft Cop as its own film.
Yeah, and it almost feels like those trailers in there are kind of like it's almost like a Robert Rodriguez,
I was going to bring that up.
Tarantino,
It has that
grindhouse kind of feel of like a Machete or something in there. So I really thought that was a really cool touch to the movie, and it's really like it's the base, the foundation that the entire movie's built off of, and that felt to me really fresh, really new. I also really liked. I think it's kind of like a mixed bag, but I think for the most part, this is listed on IMDb as a horror comedy. I think most of the comedic bits, like the banter between the characters, some of the situations they get themselves into, some of this kind of Scooby-Doo-ness when it's lighthearted, I think that really hits too. I think that really adds to these characters that are brought in from the real world. They all know each other, and the way that the banter goes back and forth, the way that they kind of rib each other, the way that they kind of give each other shit and bust balls is very like realistically portrayed. Yeah, you would expect if you were in a movie, if you got sucked into this kind of situation with your friends, you'd probably be, you'd be talking to them differently than you would be to just total strangers, and it feels pretty true to life.
I want to say too, and this is always something that comes up with movies in the independent field, and that is for the acting specifically. Now, I don't want to construe this as like you're not getting like fucking Anthony Hopkins in this movie. I don't want it to come off that way. But everyone in this movie, every single person in this movie gives a performance that is watchable, enjoyable, and really, unless you just want to be an ass, I don't feel the need to critique them in any way that's like truly negative. Could things be better? Could things be maybe tying up? Or is there maybe a line that comes out weird here and there? Sure. But again, keeping in mind the indie feel of this movie and what this movie is, I feel like everyone brought, if they didn't bring their A game, I'd like to see what their A game is, because I thought that everyone was likable. I thought every performance came out pretty good. And like you said, I know that these people are all, these actors are all friends in real life, but you could feel that chemistry between the cast. You could tell that these people, like you said, they kind of rib each other. They kind of fuck around with each other. It's shot and feels very much so like 90s Friday Night at the beginning of the movie, and then 90s in a different situation once we get to that part of the movie. But I thought just the way that everyone plays off each other, the dialogue's well done in it. It can be a little quirky at times, but I think it's played up to be quirky. I think it's actually intended that way. And I do think there's a good chemistry between everyone in there, and that helps. It's interesting. Like, you don't have to be doing Shakespeare to give a good performance necessarily. And when you can feel that chemistry between the cast, you can tell the cast is having fun doing what they're doing and making this movie. It translates to the overall feeling in the film, or at least in my opinion, it does.
Yeah. I mean, well said. But yeah, other things that I really enjoyed about the movie, I think that, again, no budget indie horror film, for what that is, and even beyond that, I think the makeup, the effects are, especially considering that they probably had no budget for this, are actually really good. I think there's maybe a few exceptions, but that I can't think of off the top of my head. But I would say like a majority of the effects look really fucked up and cool because they're practical, and there are a few CGI things. I think one of the
it's very
scenes,
minimal though.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I liked, that there's a scene towards the end where they get sprayed down with a lot of blood, and it just keeps coming and it keeps coming and it keeps coming, and you're like, Jesus Christ, it just keeps coming. It's like, it's a nice touch. It kind of plays into that comedic side of the comedy horror that you don't get so much of the effects. Like, some of it's kind of while there isn't any head popping, but it has a feeling of kind of like that head popping goodness that you want from a movie like this, or like this style of movie. So I laughed at that one.
It's got some of the like stuff that makes you kind of like shiver and cringe and that type of like, yeah. Like, I don't want to go into specific things too much. I will say, for those of you who like body horror, there's a melting scene that's really well done. I don't want to give out once you figure out what's going on in the movie, there's a piece of, I don't know, there's a thing that pops up in the movie from one of the trailers that you're like, oh shit, I know where this is going to go pretty quickly. And they do it pretty well as far as how it's portrayed. But anytime that you see something like horrific or gory happening, this is like a perfect case in point as to why you do practical effects. Because again, I can already tell you, I will like this as from an effects standpoint, I'll probably have more fun with this than anything else that comes out this year, just because it's practical, because it looks gnarly, and it's fun for me to watch that. Where we might see, I mean, I don't want to use Evil Dead as a comparison because that might actually use some practical effects, but I don't know. I guarantee I'm going to have more fun with this than Terrifier 4 whenever that comes out next year. So
you watch your mouth, John. How dare you? How dare you talk mess about?
You're turning into a Terrifier defender.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I love that thing. Huge fan.
So as far as like, if we're going to pivot here and go into negatives, I don't have any major negatives personally. There's a couple things that are a little off in it. Like there's moments where you see a little bit of like bickering between what I assume is supposed to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend or like some kind of couple that I'm like, I don't really care about this, but it moves on from it pretty quickly where it doesn't really stick around too much. I don't have any huge negatives. So Sean, do you have any critiques that you want to put on this? And I might kind of riff off of that, but just kind of see where it goes. Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, the whole piece about the movie taking place at this certain time frame, like they make a very pointed, like a very specific call out to the time and the date that this movie starts, and then the shift when they watch the movie. I don't really understand why. I can understand why it's supposed to take place in 97. You get there's no cell phones. People are just trying to meet up to do things. The VHS obviously is much more, I think even by late 90s, did we have, I think DVDs were still a little bit away. It was still a few years off for that to become really commonplace. I just don't understand why.
I think it would have been right on the cusp of it.
Yeah, it probably would have been early days. I think 2000s were more DVD, but I just don't understand why it necessarily why it's called out that it's in this time and place. It's mentioned, and then it's never really mentioned. Yeah. It's never really mentioned
I'd say, so part of why and it doesn't bother me because, I mean, I had a drunk friend watching and she kept complaining about how the cars were all new. I was like, okay, you go make a movie for no budget and get old cars. Come on, give it a break. But I think for me, the only thing I would critique that for is this movie has scenes that are shot in Occult 83. And for those who are not in the Detroit area, Occult 83 is one of Michigan's few video stores that are left. If you had listened to this when we talked about Blood Gorge probably 2 years ago, at that point, what was the store called before they were called?
It was video exclusive before that.
Yeah. And they were, I think at that time, they were the last video store in Michigan. Since then, there's a handful of others, like little places that have popped up. But Occult 83 is very much so, like, I'd say like 1A and 1B between that and Static Tape as far as the place to go for, especially if you like horror movies, for that kind of stuff in Michigan. So I think, like, I kind of agree with you in the sense that it would have been fine just to even showcase Occult 83 a little more, because it is a place that's still opening and operating. It kind of makes it's almost like a free advertisement to them, and then kind of just have it take place in that world. I mean, people in 2026 still collect random weird tapes and stuff like that. So I agree with you in that sense. I see why they did it. It kind of, you can make the argument that cell phones ruin everything in a movie, like no matter what genre you're in. So
but you don't have to
stay away from it.
You could say it's this. It could be any year. I guess that's more of my point. Like everything's modern to your drunk associate's point. Like it's hard to make a movie a period piece like that. Call it this year, and then exactly, and then people don't dress differently because they're pretty much all just dressed like any random person that you see. A young-ish person. I don't know how I'm old, so everybody looks young to me. But like, then you don't have to worry about the cars. You don't have to worry about the setting, the dress, any of the wardrobe. You're just there, and it doesn't matter. It's just anywhere USA, anytime USA. I think one of the other things that critiques that I have is that like there's really big tonal shifts. Like it goes from, I understand it's a comedy horror comedy, or however, whichever one you want to put first. But for me, like there are times when the movie really presses very serious tones or very serious ideas, or they're trying to come across very serious. And then the next scene, they do something that's, I think it's supposed to be comedic, but the only way that you really know is it's comedic is there's like a little, like a sound effect. What is the word I'm trying to think of? Like, not a corny sound effect, but like a little a lighthearted sound effect, like a boing or something like that. It just feels so out of place when you're trying to. There are people that are being killed. Your friends are being killed, and then there's like some like, you know, Saturday morning cartoon sound going off in the background when a thing bounces off somebody. It just feels very. This isn't as negative as it's going to come across, especially for you and me. It comes across very Kevin Smith in a way where it's like zoinks, you know, it's like Silent Bob makes it, or I'm sorry, Jay makes a face at the camera when this like noise goes off. It's not quite that bad, but that's how it feels to me. It's like a goofy sound effect. I guess that's what I was trying to get at. There's just like a goofy thing that happens, or like, I think one of the phone conversations, you know, the female's voice is sped up, and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's just like, I guess that works for the comedic part of it, but tonally, I feel like there's different ways that you could do it, where you have the serious horror element, and then you have that levity, like the moment of levity where there's like an icebreaker to like break the tension. I think that kind of tuning those up would have went a long way in this movie to add to the comedic tone, because like I said, I think a majority of the comedic stuff hits, and it hits really well. It's just that when you're going from being serious to being funny, and you have like a goofy effect or a sound, it kind of like, to me, it's like, ugh. It's almost like a little bit cringy in a way in that respect.
I can see where you're coming from. I guess I didn't really notice it. I mean, I noticed specifically the phone and the sped up voice for that. I noticed that, but I just kind of shrugged it off. I didn't really think much of it because I didn't really notice it in too many other spots. So maybe you're just more astute than I am. I don't know, but I can see where you're coming from with it. I guess I'll just have to watch it several more times to find out that I feel the same way.
Shucks, huh? Then the other thing I would say there, and this is a scene specific thing, is that there is a scene where they all kind of find the barn and they go up the ladder, and they're all, I think this kind of fits in that specific kind of tonal conversation. It's kind of a mad dash to get upstairs, and they get up there. And when everybody gets upstairs, they just stare off at this thing, and it just hits them all of a sudden what's going on. And it almost, the way the actual scene shot, it almost feels like they're looking at something, because they're all looking in the same direction, but we never get to see what it is. And it's just that the mood suddenly, it's like kind of hitting a high point as far as excitement or the chase or whatever is happening. And then they get up there and it just drops like a roller coaster, where it's like, why is and they're like, I'm so, you know, someone I think actually says like, I'm so sad. And you're kind of like, why? Like, I understand. Yeah. Somebody just died, but they're all staring off at something. And it's like, are they staring at something? Are they just looking off? Why are they all looking in the same direction? And I just felt like, and when we saw it the other night, and when I watched it again, I really looked at it and I was like, are they supposed to be looking? Did I miss something the first time? Are they supposed to be looking at something? They're not actually looking at anything. The last critique, you mentioned earlier that the sound is good. And I do agree. I think that 95% of the sound is really good, but there's a couple scenes in particular where there's really, the sound becomes modulated, over modulated, and you can't understand what's actually being, like, people are screaming something. And I don't know if you're supposed to be able to understand if it's supposed to be fitting that scene.
I thought it was intentional that it was doing
that's
that.
what I'm just not sure, because all the other sound is so good and you can hear everything. And if there's any kind of like any kind of voiceover ADR work, it sounds great. But those particular scenes, the music isn't really over. Like, I would expect the music to be overmodulated as well with any kind of dialogue. So it's kind of threw me off. And I actually tried to go back and actually hear what they were saying, what the person was saying, the crowbar scene in particular. And I'm like, I can't make out what's actually being said here, which is, I mean, whatever. It's just like a line, but
yeah, I'm not sure what she says in that scene either, but I really like that scene because the effect is done so well that I'm like, well, so whatever. I don't care.
Well,
but no, I would agree. It didn't take me out of it, I guess. So yeah, like I said, I don't have any major negatives. Again, for me, like this is time to fire up the grill unless you want to add more.
Then you're in for a big treat, bro. Because it's hot dog time.
All right. So I'll start us off on this one. I really enjoyed this. Hellmare for me is, you know, as someone who watches a lot of indie horror, who likes a lot of no budget stuff, and will still watch newer indie horror movies. Like I will still go into the Tubi, you know, garbage pail and pull something out like Day of the Reaper. You know, this movie is really on the high end of that genre for me. Like, it's, no movie's perfect, and this movie, I wouldn't go as far to call it perfect either, but I do find it enjoyable. I really enjoy seeing filmmakers like this progress in their work, and I feel like you can see big steps being taken from Victor's last film to this film, and that's not lost on me. I find that to be great. I like the effects in this. I like the story. It's fun seeing Lloyd Kaufman act like a dick. I laughed at his on clouds as he was creeping down the stairs as a ghost. That was kind of fun. Just as a whole, like, I have no major negatives with this. I have a lot of fun with this movie. I think the soundtrack is pretty good, so I'll go back to it for that too. It's a full hot dog for me. I'd recommend it to pretty much anyone. And honestly, I'll be surprised if I like anything more than this by the end of the year, but we still have 6 months to go, 7 months to go, something like that. So, John, how about you?
Whose hot dog is this, huh? Is it yours?
Yeah.
I think it's important to, I had this beer channel, and I think it's important to support local filmmakers, craft beer, whatever it is. And I think, that's almost doubly true. Not just local, but I think it's doubly true for like filmmakers, young upcoming filmmakers, people that are making indie films. If you complain and you're sick of all the Marvel shit, all the Star Wars shit out there, if you don't support somebody with a new idea, you're just going to see the same stuff over and over again. And I think that all being said, I think you have to go into this movie. Again, we've kind of prefaced it by saying this is an indie film. This is a no budget film. You have to go into this knowing that you're seeing a movie that has a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on the screen. And these people are doing it because they love making movies. It's not because, I don't think the director, any of the people involved are like, we're going to be the next big thing, and we're going to go to Hollywood and make a gazillion dollars. I think it's like it's stepping stones, right? He's, like you said, he's getting better every movie, and every movie is looking better. All of the kinks are getting kind of ironed out as we go. So I think in this movie, Victor Gabriel did a lot with a little on Hellmare. Do I think some of it could be tightened up? Yes, I do. We kind of talked through all the things that you just kind of have to expect going into a movie like this. I think this is as far as indie films go, I think this is really close to being a classic because it is such an original concept. Like I said, I love the story. I like the banter, the chemistry, all that stuff all together. As it stands, the way it is currently, I give it half a hot dog, but it's one of those things, like I said, you have to know going into it, this is a small indie film. It's not a big budget film, but there are a lot worse movies out there that have the indie label. Sometimes indie comes across as kind of an excuse to just make whatever you can. But I think that with this movie, a lot of time got put into it, a lot of effort got put into it, and it shows. Like, Victor is getting better and better, and I'm really looking forward to see what he comes up with next.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we got for this week. So if you want to check out Hellmare, again, please do follow RFN Pictures. We'll have links to his profile in the comments. We share his stuff regularly, if practically daily at this point. So give him a follow, support indie stuff. When it becomes available on a streaming network, we'll make sure you know about it, stream the shit out of it. Until then, if you're interested in the shit that we do, which is also very indie and not nearly
very low budget,
very low budget, next to no budget as well. You can follow us. We're at Dewey Pod Monster on all the social medias except for that other one, Blue Sky, where we are at crap.town. We do have a Patreon now. If you'd like to, help aid our no budgeting, you can do that at patreon.com/DeweyPodMonster. Anyone who has joined recently, we do thank you for that. We appreciate your support. We're on all the podcast platforms that you can think of. If you are not already subscribed to us, please do click subscribe. That does help us somehow. I'm not entirely sure how, but it does. Or leave us a like or a review, or tell someone else to listen to the show. So be like, you know what? You like indie films. You should listen to these guys talk about Hellmare, or you should go way back and listen to them talk about Fat Guy Goes Nutsoid. They were nicer to Hellmare than Fat Guy Goes Nutsoid, for sure.
Yeah.
This is a better movie than Fat Guy Goes Nutsoid.
That's true. Low bar, but yes, true.
Also, you can find us at yourunpodcast.com. We are You Run Podcast Network members. Please do head over there. While you're there, please check out one of the other great shows that have taken their time to make another no-budget product that we all want you to check out and enjoy. Sean, what have I forgot?
John, you may have forgotten anything that we talked about on this show. It's available in the show notes, and there's links to all this stuff. Some of them are free. Not all of them are free, but we're going to try and make them free if we can. If it's not free, it's going to be on Amazon. It's going to say Amazon after the link. If you click those links, you go to Amazon, you buy something, Jeff Bezos pays us. And hey, it's nice to see Jeff Bezos pay for something rather than get all those goddamn tax breaks. Anyways, you can find the show notes at crap.town. You can find them on the podcast player of your choice. That's what the show notes are. When you click the notes about the show, those are called show notes. You can check those out there. I feel like I was going to say something else. Yeah, I know. It's crazy that they'd call them what it is. It's insane. Anyways, I was going to say something else. Can't remember what it was. But anyways, I said anyways a few hundred times now. You can check me out on Blue Sky. I am at internalbleeding.crap.town. I am exclusively on Blue Sky. Go there, check me out, take a look, see what I'm up to. Oh, and if you listen to us on Spotify, follow us on Spotify, because I was uploading an episode and it said that people that as many listens as we get, we should have like 100 times more followers because all the other shows do. And I want to be just like everybody else. So follow the show on Spotify if you listen on Spotify, so you can get all those juicy and creamy updates.
Creamy?
Yeah. Cool. Creamy, turgid updates.
All right. Well, I guess in that case, get your creamy coleslaw and swell up, Butthorns. We'll be back next week with something else.
Bird season's over, Butthorn.
Yes, it takes common sense to know about Hellmare.
That's right, you jagoon.
It's probably some kind of racial slur that I didn't even know what it was.
I am not keeping mine in when I say it, but yours is going to be.
Well, let's see what happens.
Goddamn jagoons.
Real quick. No, according to the Urban Dictionary, according to the Urban Dictionary, jagoon stands for a worthless person. So
I've never even heard it. So you got it on me.
Look at that. Look at that. Making it somehow relevant.